So now we're going to move on to our next segment, which is Greg. And Greg is going to he's continuing his build, which is a build along of what's a really cool structure. So really looking forward to the next stage here, Greg, and I'll back out and leave it to you.
Okay. Let me get it into slide mode. Excuse me. And for those of you playing along at home, this is going to be week 4 out of 5, where we're building Prater's products from rail scale models. Uh, this week, we'll be installing the rafter tails, painting and installing the metal roofing, and preparing and installing the rolled roofing, if I don't lose my voice from allergies. Excuse me. If you remember last week, we put the acetate in the windows, put the windows into the building. We built and painted our roof cards, and then went ahead and installed them on the buildings. Now this week, we'll be doing both finishing and construction, so we'll cover them both. Excuse me. First thing is the rafter tails, and if you're building the HO kit, they were the 2x6 strip wood that came with it. And the first thing I did was just stained it the same color that I stained the buildings. And then I used my trim color, which is an off-white, and I just sponged it on instead of dry brushing, but it gives it the same sort of peeling paint effect. And they're rafter tails. They're not going to be seen that well because they're underneath the roof. Before I put the roof on, I had measured the angle of the roof, which was 95 degrees in this case. So that meant that if I set 47.5 degrees on my Ultimation chopper, I could chop all of the rafter tails at the correct angle. And I just measured the length that I needed, set my guide, and ran 3 or 4 strips through until I had enough cut that I needed. Now, in order to put them down and have them evenly spaced, one thing I tend to do is put down a piece of masking tape where I've used a ruler to measure each location for a rafter tail. And then I'll put a couple pieces of masking tape on the outside to show where the roof's going to go. And you need to do this step before you put anything on your roof, such as a chimney or something. Then I just go ahead and use canopy glue, and I'll pick up each rafter tail, dip it in, and then glue it in place. And the angle that I have cut in it allows it to butt right up against the building. And this is how they come out. For the most part, they all reach the end of the roof. Every now and then I have one that overhangs. And I use the same rafter tails for the small house. And obviously, because the roof had less of an overhang, all of them are going to stick out some, but that's okay. There's a way to deal with that. And you just use a set of flush clippers and clip them even with the edge of the roof. And this ends up being easier to do before you've put any of the roofing product on. And you have a couple different ways you can clip them or cut them before you put them on. In the early part of the 20th century, a square cut was more common, and that's just a square cut with the edge of the rafter. And the reason they did that is they'd often actually have a decorative element at the end of the rafter tails when they were doing gingerbread and stuff. After World War II, when houses were being put up more quickly and efficiently, they would use a plumb cut, which is just flush with the edge of the roof and it's plumb with the wall. And the reason for doing that is it's real easy to put up a fascia board when you're building a house. So depending on when your buildings are, you might take that into account. Of course, you'll see them differently from all different eras. Now, the other thing that I said we were going to be doing is putting in a view block, and that's for those of us who are not detailing the interior. I just painted mine black inside, and then this will keep you from seeing through. And I cut this out of some construction paper. You could use cardboard. You just measure a diagonal and then put a little bit of glue on both edges and slide it on in, making sure that you've cut the top so that it will fit inside the roof. And I did the same thing for the main building. And that keeps you from being able to see through it if you have any light behind the building, which obviously most buildings that have walls in them, you wouldn't be able to see through. Now we're going to start working on the rolled roofing. And I took the black construction paper that came in the kit and I put a light mist of a gray paint over it. In this case, I used a primer. And it's not heavy, it's just enough to lighten it up some. And then after that dries, I come back and put a heavy coat of a black paint on it. And you want it to be a very flat black paint. And then once that's dry, I've got a 1x4 with a rolled edge. And I'll put my strips on that after they're cut out and use a coarse sandpaper to just scrape over the edge of it. And that gives you this sort of worn impression. And the more you scrape, the more worn it'll look. And for older buildings, you can actually tear the material so it looks like the roofing is really starting to come apart. And this is what it looks like when they're all done. And you can get a variety of weathering using this method. And then I just cut them to length and would use canopy glue to glue them in place. Now you could go ahead and cut them shorter and have a couple pieces where it overlaps slightly if you wanted to have multiple pieces that maybe weren't the length of the building. I didn't go to that step. But what I did, I also drew a couple of parallel lines to my ridge to make sure that as I was gluing them on and moving up, I kept everything parallel. Now, when you have two roofs that come together, like the roof in the house and the roof over the wing walls, a good roofer is going to put some type of flashing in that valley. And what I tend to do if I run into a case like that is I'll use a strip of styrene that's very thin, and I'll score it down the middle and bend it to the shape that I need. And then I'll just glue it in place. And once I have it glued in there, I'll go ahead and paint it a silver and then go over it with a type of a rust wash. If you wanted it to look like copper, you could paint it a kind of a pale green patina or something. And then I went ahead and put a ridge cap on, and that was just one of my pieces of roofing that I cut a little narrower and folded in half. And I also put another piece of flashing on this edge because it's going to meet up with this wall over here. And a roofer would put flashing there so that it doesn't run down behind the roof. Now, for the little extensions that we have on the house here, I just cut small pieces and then glued them in place. So there's nothing to that really. Now we're going to start dealing with the corrugated metal roofing. And the product that Stephen has given us in this kit is kind of a paper fibrous product. And it's easy to work with, but it's also a little easy to break. So you want to get used to it and be careful with it. I cut my roof panels to 3/4 of an inch by an inch, which works out to roughly 5 by 7 feet. And then I lay them out to make sure that with just a little bit of overlap, they'll cover the whole roof. I go ahead and attach them to a piece of cardboard. I just put down some upside down masking tape. And then in my spray booth, I went ahead and put a light gray on them and let that dry. Then I brought it back to the bench, and I've got a couple rust washes that I like using. And I used a couple different sponges to put these on, making sure that I made it heavier at what was going to be the bottom of the roofing. And then this is what they look like when I was done with all of them. And after they dried, I turned them over, and I also had painted and put a little bit of rust on the bottom edge of the backside. And that's because they are going to overhang the roof here. And you don't want people looking underneath your roof and pointing out that you didn't weather the bottom of them. Then I just use a little bit of tacky glue on each one and glue them in place with the same overlap that I had determined when I was laying them out, so that they all come out at the end and you don't have any one particular one that you have to cut that's narrower. But you do need to do that when you're putting on the second row because you want to offset your seams. You don't want the seams to line up unless you want to make it look like a bad roofer did the job, which maybe that's your goal, who knows. And this is what it looks like when they're all done. And I want to talk a little bit about overlapping. This material that we're using is much thicker than actual corrugated roofing would be. So when you overlap it, it actually is a substantial amount of overlap. And if you're taking photos, sometimes that can show up with the reveal of the shadow line could be really dramatic. One thing to keep in mind is most roofers, when they overlap this type of roofing, will have it away from the prevailing winds wherever the building is located. So it's worth it to keep that in mind if you're putting a bunch of structures that have the same roofing in the same area. Now, for the ridge cap for this, early in the 20th century, when they were dealing with corrugated roofing, they tend to use just some type of easy to bend metal for the ridge cap. It was too difficult to take the corrugated roofing and bend it against the grain to put it up there, and you wouldn't want to bend it with the grain because it wouldn't shed the water properly. By the mid 20th century, they had metal brake materials or tools that made it easier to bend the corrugated roofing against the grain. So sometimes you'd see bent corrugated roofing as a ridge cap. In my case, I just used a piece of angle styrene. And since our roof has a 95-degree angle, the 90-degree angle is close enough. I just slit down the middle a little bit with my knife, and then that was enough to make it lay flat. And then after I glued it on, I painted it and weathered it the same as the roof. Now, this is my second change from the directions. Stephen has given us a tissue roof and then a little block of wood to raise it up, because unless you're putting it right up by the ridge of the roof, the chimney itself would be too low to put anywhere else. And that's because you've got to follow this 3-2-10 rule if you're putting chimneys on buildings. This is pretty much standard throughout most of the 20th century. And what this means is it's the guideline used to determine the minimum required height for chimneys. And the three measurements are: the chimney must extend 3 feet above the point where it penetrates the roof. The top of the chimney has to be at least 2 feet higher than any part of the building, such as the ridge. And the distance used to check for obstacles in step 2 is a 10-foot radius all the way around. And so that's why you have this. And that meant that our chimney was going to be too short to put it anywhere in this part of the roof. But I didn't use the block of wood because I have a whole bunch of tissue chimneys. I have a bunch of tissue everything. If you do use a block of wood, you could paint it to look like masonry, or you could paint it to look like bricks, but I didn't need to do that. I just cut the top off one of my tissue chimneys and then used my Ultimation sander to sand it to the 47.5-degree angle, and then glued those two together. And that gave me a chimney that was tall enough to use. Then I got all of my roof detail parts together. Now the chimney and these stovepipes came in the kit. If I'm building a structure and it has any kind of plumbing inside it, I always try to add a vent pipe as well. And in this case, I just used some 3/32 styrene tubing. And I went ahead and painted those. I painted the vent pipe a silver, and I painted the stovepipes a black, and then I painted the chimney a dull red. And we'll weather those next week when we install our roof details. We'll build and install the awnings and the lights and the signs, and we'll paint and install our building onto the base that came with it. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Back to you, Phil.
Any questions for Greg about the build this week and about the processes he did?
Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, hi, Jeff.
Hey, hi. Awesome. I mean, unbelievable detail. You're doing really good.
So,
So,
thanks.
okay,
These are just standard modeling tricks and tips.
well, I heard you got the history of some of these things, 20th century, the chimney height and all that. Okay, so when did drip edge come out?
I don't know. And the reason for that is because I try to refrain from putting gutters on anything because they're so difficult. I've done it a few times, but looking up the whole history of drip edges and gutters, and you can include drip shields, like some of the older buildings over the doorway, they'd put a V if they weren't going to have gutters so that the rain wouldn't wash down onto people coming in and out the door. I have not researched that. Maybe someday I will, but not ready to do that yet.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that I did ask that question as a joke because your work is superb, but you've done the research on this too. So I appreciate, Greg. Awesome job.
Well, I appreciate that. The couple of buildings where I have put gutters on were for when I was building them for clients, and I assume that they would expect them. And you put in the gutters, and then you have to put in the downspouts, and you have to make sure the gutters are attached to the roof, and that's really difficult. But in all the cases where I did it, I made it work. I just don't do it unless I have to.
That's kind of one of those things. You pick your modeling era and location based on what you don't want to model.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to model gutters. I don't want to model. I mean, is it horses or gutters, or what's the thing you're trying to avoid?
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks,
And-
Greg. That was again great. Really cool presentation.
All right. And next week we'll have the last episode.
Well,
last-
one thing, can I say something here?
Sure.
Very nice presentation. And I used a little trick for corrugated overlapping siding
Uh-huh.
on my oblong box company. Most corrugated siding that you have is going to be too thick.
Yep.
That's a given. So what I did is I wanted an overlap, but I'm thinking I can't overlap it. It's going to look way out of scale.
Yeah.
So I had my laser Kai just cut me a very thin strip that I just stick on above the bottom,
Uh-huh.
and then I lay the next one right on top of that, and it just gives you enough edge. And you
Okay.
can't tell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it gets around the fact that sometimes we have to deal with materials that in our scale world are much bigger or thicker than in the real world. I mean, I have a couple times butted corrugated roofing together because the overlap was going to look out of scale, but you have to be really careful with that there's no gaps because it really is supposed to be overlapped.
Exactly.
And it depends on the product you're using. This particular corrugated roofing is fairly thick in the world of modeling materials. There are thinner ones out there, and in fact, Railscale Models has come out with their own. This was a product that they were getting from somewhere else. They've just recently come out with their own that's a little bit thinner and is already the gray shade, so it's easier to work with. Unfortunately, it came out after this kit was available.
Well, I like the way you did it too, because a lot of people do it all uneven, and they lined those things up. They
Well,
didn't do
it depends. Sometimes they end up looking like that, especially if you're talking about, barns or old buildings that were not built to spec. But this was a well put together building,
Right.
and we're showing a little bit of aging on it, but it's not ramshackle. It's not falling apart. So,
right. Well, nice build. Nice,
Well,
very nice.
thanks, Dennis.
Excellent, Greg. Thanks again, and we definitely look forward to next week and the final segment. It's been a really cool build. I hope folks are taking advantage and building one at home.